quarterly, these emergency preparedness meetings pretty much quarterly for the past several years. And during that time, we've worked with ice storms, tornadoes, Zika viruses, railroad derailments, that's right, yeah. So, you know, I really think that as mayor, one of my most important responsibilities is to be able to assure Tuolumne citizens that in the event of a community emergency, that we're prepared. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for your dedication, your preparation, your professionalism. In the event that we do have a community emergency, I am fully confident that you know what to do and will handle it very well. And I think that's a very important responsibility that I have and that each of you have as well. So today, we've not talked about, during our previous meetings, anything about cybersecurity. So we're going to do that today. And I wanted to share with you just a little bit of information about what prompted me to address this issue. This is an article that appeared in Time magazine just last week or week before. The internet began to wobble at 7 a.m. early on October 21st. Servers at a little-known internet infrastructure company, DYN, how do you pronounce that, Steve? DYN. Based in Manchester, New Hampshire, began experiencing an overwhelming flood of malicious traffic. By midday, a coordinated series of attacks had metastasized, eventually blocking or significantly slowing access to dozens of sites, including Twitter, Netflix, Spotify, and Airbnb for millions of Americans, as well as web users in Brazil, Germany, India, Spain, and the UK. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security are looking into the attack, thought to be the largest of its kind ever. But by the time the disturbance ebbed the following day, the point security researchers have been making to one another at an increasing alarm pitch in recent months became clear to a much broader public. America's digital infrastructure is deeply vulnerable. This DYN firm was overwhelmed with bogus traffic and so-called distributed denial of service attack. The bad guys' massive volume of requests flooded DYN, making it difficult for legitimate users to get through. That didn't knock service like Spotify offline per se, it just made it impossible to reach. What was most shocking about the latest assault were the tools used to mount it. Hackers employed a vast array of remotely controlled internet-connected gadgets, surveillance cameras, printers, digital video recorders to generate the crippling deluge. They exploited these devices, which are part of the so-called Internet of Things, and often suffer from weak or non-existent security. DYN was getting tens of millions of messages from around the globe sent by seemingly harmless devices. It could be your DVR, CCTV camera, a thermostat. And this is a quote, "I even saw an internet-connected toaster on Kickstarter yesterday," said DYN's Chief Strategy Officer, Kyle York. The Internet of Things is growing faster than governments or industry's ability to secure it. There are now 6.4 billion connected devices globally. By 2020, that will balloon to 20.8 billion devices. Bruce Schneider, a security expert and fellow at Harvard's Center for Internet and Society. "Someone is learning how to take down the Internet," he wrote ominously in September. An event like the October 21st attack may, in retrospect, look like Darth Vader test firing the Death Star on Alderaan. So, I hate to start a meeting in such ominous terms, but you know, that's what we're dealing with. And you know, a lot of times we recognize that experts must come from at least 50 miles away, right? But in this case, not. We're very, very fortunate to have a cybersecurity expert, perhaps others, in Tullahoma. Steve Gleason is our speaker today. He's the Director of Cybersecurity and Information Technology at Microcraft. He has over 25 years' experience in IT. He has provided various system solutions for private and public companies. He holds a BS degree from Stanford University and several industry-specific certifications, including Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer and CISSP. He currently serves Microcraft, Inc. as Information Systems Security Manager, responsible for information assurance of government classified programs, as well as cybersecurity oversight and implementation of internal corporate cybersecurity operations. Steve, that's pretty impressive. Please, I hope I can follow at least part of what you're saying this morning. But welcome. You're here. Let's welcome Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that huge half a page of introduction. I know we have some experts that have more to say about what I've got to say than sitting right there. I see about 5 of them up there. Some fellow geeks, I call them. But anyway, as you can tell with what the mayor has spoken of relative to the October 21st attack, we're living in a changing landscape, and I'm going to fluctuate back and forth of awareness and some training and then some resources to hopefully help us not give in to the cyber fatigue. The cybersecurity fatigue that NIST is, see some nodding heads, that helps. That NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technologies, they conducted a study, and they conducted a study that we are continually barraged by breaches, DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks, viruses, and all of this, and the internet is going to pot. Okay, well, if we can't take action against that, I can tell you in this specific case, we can certainly take action against this specific thing, and I'll give you some pointers on that. Let me connect you a little bit to where I come from. I've been in IT for quite some time. Back in the good old days, I got to support doctors, lawyers, and bankers in Birmingham. I graduated from Stanford University, got into computers because of the Stanford Student Computer Corporation, and started consulting in computers. Well, the biggest threat that I had at that time was I was hired by a law firm, couldn't figure out why the chief partner's computer was going down all the time. Her biggest threat was that she had purchased a new pet, and it was a ferret. And that ferret was at home. Her computer was going down at home because the ferret was chewing through the board. So that was the biggest threat that I've encountered in that age. Then came macroviruses, then came those things that you know, the I love you virus. But we come into a connected world. Machines that have taken over our language. We use words like multitask, talk to you offline. My child's or my adult child's definition of talking to a person. If your child tells you they talk to a person all day, what have they done? Texting. Okay. I don't respond to that inside the house. As the mayor said, we're connected. We have 6.4 billion connected devices today. We'll have 15 million more in the next 3 years. 15 billion. 15 billion more connected devices. So we've got these great computers that are all connected. And we're garaged. So I don't want to be a part of any more bad news. Be a part of giving you some solutions. Now, one of the things that brought me to Tullahoma, I realized that coming to Microcraft was the job that I'd always dreamed of having but didn't know. I came to Tullahoma about 16 years ago. I got a job over here at Microcraft and started living in this area. Little did I know that I was not working for bankers, lawyers, and doctors anymore. Working for scientists and engineers and master craftsmen. I am an Air Force brat. I've lived all over the world. I am the son of an Air Force colonel, a PhD in academic administration. I grew up in the stadium of the Air Force Academy with the Thunderbirds flying over. I watched the Air Force Academy cadets march into lunch. And so coming to Tullahoma is part of my dream that I didn't know. Those that I support, my direct reports, I've had direct reports including two-star General Mike Wiedemer, and most recently our new President and CEO, Dr. Kenneth Sullivan. As a part of the Defense Industrial Base, we protect the supply chain. I'm a cyber warrior. We're cyber warriors. All of us actually are cyber warriors. And the best thing that happened to me at Microcraft is I fell in love with my wife, Katie Gleason. I had to mention that. But cybersecurity defined, I'll go into that a little bit, but I really want to go ahead and define some of the DDoS stuff. And anybody stop me if you have a question, because if I speak under or over your head, or try not to fall asleep. The targeted servers were what we call DNS servers, and they were targeted by the Internet of Things devices. And the mayor just asked me to speak about this yesterday. So hopefully we'll do this justice. But it does bring to light our personal responsibility. Because can anyone tell me why those devices were compromised?
You didn't change your passwords.
You said that. Excellent. Okay. Every time you go out and buy a home router, wireless router, everybody has wireless routers here. Every time you go out and buy surveillance equipment, every time you go out and buy a phone, every time you go out and buy a toaster, every time you go out and buy a refrigerator that's smart, it has a default login and password somehow, some way. If you leave it that way, and it's internet facing, or maybe even not internet facing, it's hackable and usable. And so you say, Steve, our toasters are going to start attacking the power grid? I hope not. And it's not some kind of a gee whiz fix. It's a personal responsibility fix. And why does this mean a lot to us in a gigabit city? Being able to move to Tullahoma and having been on Light Tube for the last 8 years, or as long as it possibly could, being in a gigabit city for a geek like me is awesome. And I was at half the speed over in Birmingham. We got fiber to the premise. I wish you guys knew what that meant for me to be able to say that to my friends. Fiber to the premise. I said this to some guys in Washington, or some guys from Y12, some scientists over at Oak Ridge. Fiber to the premise. Kidding. We have it right here in Tullahoma. Well, what that means is we're connected faster to the internet than most other cities. We're going up to 10 gigabits, I've been told. So that's quite fast for this rural community. Now, what we can do, is do something that we in security call reduce our vulnerability footprint. That means start changing the passwords. Okay, that's one thing. If your default passwords aren't changed, then change them. If you have a router that's more than 3 or 4 years old, buy another one if you want to. I mean, I'm not for just buying, but I'm all for buying some of the Cisco, Linksys, sorry to name products, but those kinds of things that I can program in my sleep. They're very easy, and you can change those default administrator passwords. I think we're going to need to get some way for me to get some of this out to them in email. If you have any questions on exactly where to go, ftc.gov, Federal Trade Commission, has a lot of good personal information on how to secure your personal networks. Also some good small business information. Hopefully, no default passwords on any of your firewalls and organizations. So be sure and inventory the Internet of Things, of the things that you have. Be sure and do security patches. Now, the way that I do security patches, and another practice, is be your home network administrator. Take responsibility for being that, or at least name one, and don't. And it doesn't need to be one of your brilliant children, unless they give you the administrator password. Okay? Administrate your home personal network. Take control of it, because there's things that you should be responsible for. One of those is patching. Okay? How many of you have iPhones? Okay? How many of you have the latest update? Okay. Those updates are not just feature updates. Okay, that's an Internet of Things update. Okay, I'm not just going to talk about the things that were named in the Distributed Denial of Service attack on October 21st, but cell phones can be used, and they're called zombies. So if you want a zombie in your, as your cell phone, zombie in your pocket, just don't patch it. So does everyone get those little messages on these things that says, do the updates? It's very, very tempting to get sick and tired of updates. But you got to do it. Got to. The exploits that are there, the threat actors know. We are just very fortunate that this last threat actor was probably not a nation-state threat actor. We would have had Dr. Sullivan and I would have had a major problem had that denial of service activity been perpetrated by a nation-state against the supply chain. And it could have been. Nobody says it can't. We're in a post-9/11 world. I'm not here to, I'm just here to raise the awareness of personal responsibility. Personal responsibility. These little things, these little toys that we're buying, these innovative, cool things can be used against our society. They really can be. Now, if anybody has anything to interject or any questions at any time, please ask me. If I've seen anything or whatever. Another thing that we'll put out in some information is on your routers, disable universal plug and play. Universal plug and play. Get somebody to do it if you don't know how, that you trust. I don't know, I can't, there's probably at least 10 different brands recognized here of your home routers, but it's an internet-facing device. That protocol, we got to realize that Microsoft, Apple, Linux, all these different OS vendors, all of the different product vendors are there to sell you their stuff. Okay? They never were intended to be secure computing environments. ever. The DoD tried to create those in the 80s and failed. No one ever used them. Okay, we don't use them in classified processing, I'll tell you that. There are some used in other places, but not in most. Okay, so what you've got is the Windows operating system, the Apple operating system, and don't think that you're not, because you've got Apple, that you're secure. I've got Apple, I've got a lot. But patching these devices is important, and that's the reason why there are patches, is because they were not built to be secure. So they're reacting to people that are finding vulnerabilities. And purchase IoT devices. Is anybody, if you're thinking about buying home surveillance equipment, just be sure to purchase stuff. Purchase things that at least give some kind of guarantee that it's cyber secure. And if it's not, then ask Home Depot and ask Lowe's why they don't carry it. I'm sorry to say it like that, but this is going to be more work for me if we don't secure this stuff. You've got to start this way, and we're probably one of the few groups of people that are hearing these kind of things. Now, what we can do about it is just what I said: buy secure stuff, buy secure devices, disable plug and play, always update, always update, always update. And default passwords. Now, this is just on your IoT, Internet of Things devices. On your regular computers, obviously, this is just general security talk now. I'm going back to what I was going to talk about, but this is on, let's just say, of your PCs, of your computers, you know, your Windows 7 computers, Windows 10, that are on your network now. Depending on the threat actor and their abilities, and the insecurity of some of your devices, the whole pattern of a DDoS attack is infecting. They turn them into this bot into a zombie, and it's connected, so it's distributed, okay, to a command and control center, right? At any given time, every day, 250,000, and this was back in 2010, 250,000 computers a day can become zombies and parts of what we call botnets. Those botnets are what took down those servers that the mayor was talking about. Okay, we're just lucky that they're consumer services. Somebody was just kind of doing an old school thing, meaning kind of taking it down because they can. I don't really know why they did that. But there are reasons to take down services. There are reasons to take down a service. So this service can go down, so this information can be stolen. So, what I found, does anybody have any questions about that stuff? DDoS attacks, I'm going to move on to.
Should everyone have a purchased security pack like McAfee?
Absolutely. Yes.
So you need, your Microsoft does not supply anything in there. They have a Windows Defender, I believe, in there, but that's not enough.
That was my next point. Is when we start talking about defending our PCs, our home PCs, and not getting viruses. Why don't you want to get viruses? They slow your computer down, and they also can become zombies. One of the best tools I typically suggest. I work with Symantec and with McAfee, Symantec and McAfee mainly. To have good antivirus, don't depend on that alone. Windows 10 has some great built-in firewall stuff and antivirus stuff. It's great built in, but if it's not enough for you, you can go to McAfee. That's what I'd say. Go to McAfee. Be sure you back up. Okay, I had a guy come to me with a laptop. Friend of a friend of a friend. They won't admit that it's their laptop, so it's a friend's laptop. And it has ransomware. Now, the effects of ransomware are the best thing you can have as a home user or as a business user is make sure you have a backup. Now, if you don't have a backup to those photographs, ransomware can get you and lock that stuff up and encrypt it. Now, part of that is social engineering. Some of it can be. This guy actually had, I really got the truth, actually had an individual call him from Microsoft and tell him that his PC was infected and it was drastically needing help. So could he please go to a website and click on this button? While on the phone, this individual did that. Clicked on that button. The guy on the phone says, it's going to cost you $10,000 to get this unlocked. So that's one way, social engineering is one way ransomware works. I mean, that's pretty easy. Another way it works is just don't click on everything that there is. One of the as far as most of the time, ransomware is coming through email. So your habit there is if you don't know who the email comes from, don't even open it. I mean, I know that's difficult for some, but just don't open it. Our mantra or our deal at Microcraft for 14 years, they didn't even know me when I came there. The deal was, you get an email that you don't know where it comes from, call Steve. Call me. Well, it's a lot better than ransomware. So you double click on an email, double click on an attachment. That's one way that ransomware infects you. Even if you have good antivirus. Okay? So backing up your data is sometimes the only thing that you can have. It's the first thing I ask somebody. And if you don't, still call somebody that knows. There are people around here that have beat ransomware. There are computer professionals around here that have beat ransomware. I know them. Help them. Patch passwords. We've already talked about passwords. And I wish we could get rid of them. But we're not going to be able to in the near future. If you haven't heard this, I'm just going to say it again. Use different passwords for different systems and accounts. Don't use the same password for everything. Don't use passwords that are based on personal information. Use a combination, use at least 8 characters. A combination of capital letter and a special character and numbers. Now, all of those written down on a nice sticky note on your monitor is probably not the best idea. But it's certainly not the best idea. There are some things on the FTC site, FTC.gov, there's a wealth of personal computing information for homes. It even has things about cyberbullying and things like that. They talk about using mnemonics. And that's something that somebody was talking to me about the other day. It's kind of a password strategy, okay, for your services, for your IoT devices, for your computer, for your different things, and how to, for instance, I love to watch Alabama football. That's a lie. But I-L-T, get it? That's your password. Okay. I love to watch Alabama lose. That's the truth. Just forget it. Sorry. there was a vulnerability in that game, and it was called 18-year-olds protecting our, forget it, sorry. So developing mnemonics. Does anybody have, developing a password strategy? I mean, do you have a strategy to, when my daughter goes off to Murfreesboro, okay, and she goes off to Murfreesboro in her car, she's been she's going to go to MTSU for the last 2 years of school. She's going into equine therapy. And do I have a strategy, or does she have a strategy to fix a flat tire? Yes. Yes, she does. Okay. Do we have a password strategy? It's almost that. I know you think it's important to me because I'm a cyber geek, okay, but I really, if you guys, what do you guys think about this? Please tell me, because I really would like to know. So, also, if you don't want to get some of this malware, be careful about searching for free things. Free space anything. The first 5 hits on Google are going to be malware. Going to be. And that's coupons, fonts. Okay? Free coupons, free fonts. If you put in credit report, the first few hits are going to be malware. Okay? If you put in how to fix my computer, free software. If you look on the television and you use the television to go directly to a website on deal.com or whatever, you're going to get malware, malicious software on your computer. Okay? Also, this is something that's happened recently, is know the way that your service providers communicate with you. Okay? Your service providers. In other words, a Sin Federal Credit Union doesn't send me text to change my online password. They don't use that method of communication to do that. They don't use any form of communication to do that. Unless I ask them specifically on the webpage to change the password. I don't think they'll do that. I think I have to come in physically and do it. But anyway, you get a text, you'll respond. Put in a password, boom, they have your credentials. They'll do it. Send Adobe. You'll get Adobe emails that'll say this and that has been hacked. Can you give us a name and a password? Anything that's asking for a name and a password in text or email, just make sure that you know that's how the service provider communicates with you. So, conclusion, everything I have to say is today is let's start thinking about what it's like to actually purchase and use secure connected devices. Secure connected devices. Anything connected to the internet needs to have baked-in security. It needs to be built with security in mind. So if it's a phone, we need to know what security parameters we have to protect our phones, to protect our routers. Routers are the big one. Patch and personal responsibility to change your passwords and to be your own home network administrator. It's strange that our home enabling cool stuff, our Netflix and everything, is so intertwined with our daily business lives and our economy and our children's lives. I mean, start getting to the point of talking about school security, about that organization. It's really good here, Tulsa. It's a great place to live. It's a small town. It's got connected services, wonderful people that my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter's grown up in, my 7-year-old daughter's growing up in. And I want to see these services thrive, especially the connected services. And one of the things that we need primarily in our organizations is top-down leadership. There are two people in here right now, Mayor and Dr. Sullivan, that are both top-down leaders, cyber champions, because we're basically saying, hey, this is an issue. This is an issue. We don't understand it. Sometimes we in Tullahoma, what we don't understand, we don't like to talk about. Because we're an intelligent bunch. Tullahoma, per capita, a lot of engineers around here, and a lot of, I can go over to the shop. I can walk over to the shop and can talk for 30 minutes or for 30 seconds about one of our master craftsmen is doing, what they're doing, and I don't know what they're talking about. They're talking over my head. A lot of intelligent folks around here. So, personal responsibility, top-down leadership. You being leaders in your organizations to get this word out. So, yes, sir.
A lot of times you're prompted by your device to remember me. So I assume that we shouldn't be doing that.
You shouldn't be doing that. Now, if you are doing that, okay, what does that do? It can cause you to forget what your passwords are, forget that you even needed a password for that site. So remembering passwords is probably not good cyber hygiene. We all do it. You can all clear it. But before you do, make sure that one thing that I love about the services that I have all kinds of internet services, is I love to that I can just change my password by requesting it, either by two-factor authentication. I send my cell phone some kind of text, so you can change your passwords a lot. You can change it. That's great. Anybody else have any other personal tips?
I was going to say, one rule of thumb that I have is the easier they try to make it for me, the more vulnerable they make me. They asked me to store my password, and I said no, and because it can be, I don't know, I've always been suspicious of that. It makes it easier for me next time I come in and get into the file without having to use a password. Like I said, you forget it over a period of time, or it makes you more vulnerable. If you store it in there, it makes me think somebody else could have access to it if they really wanted to.
That's exactly right. I mean, that literally can save you thousands of dollars in ransomware. That alone, I mean, it really can. Yes, sir.
We had a 9-year-old girl stay with us a little while back, and her parents had given her a device that she could only use when she had Wi-Fi. So they felt like she was safe because she couldn't use it out on the road getting just wired, but only had Wi-Fi. She came to our house, and my wife gave her the password, and it did some major damage to our internet connection at our house because she had something on that phone that went back into our wireless system and got into my wife's laptop, and it wasn't protected at all. I mean, and I don't know what all she had downloaded. She was 9, you know. So
I'll tell you, that's refreshing to hear somebody say that. To hear somebody, because there are stories like this that people just don't tell anybody, okay? But one thing, when you let a guest in your house, a guest that comes in your house, and you have to give them the Wi-Fi password, okay? Change it. Change it. After they use it, change it. Now, they're letting how old was the girl?
She's 9.
I can tell you that there are some ways to scan the device, but for instance, when we have regulatory controls and just good common sense. We have guests that come into Microcraft. They connect to secure Wi-Fi and they can't see each other. Their computers are not, if they connect to our guest Wi-Fi, and it connects through our firewall, okay? So we can't have this customer seeing this customer's data if they're guests, you know? So that is an excellent example of, I don't know, what did you do to fix that problem?
Well, we had to buy a new router and change our passwords. We had printers that wouldn't even connect anymore. It knocked them offline. We had to reset all that stuff, all the printer connectivity to the wireless devices.
More than likely, if you did forensics on that, you know, that forensics on that device, you would have found some type of malware that was on that device was part of the botnet.
They said, she just watches movies on it, don't worry about it.
That's what she tries to do.
It was Netflix.
That's what she tries to do. But if you notice that your movies are not connecting as well as they used to, if your Netflix isn't working as good as it used to, if you've got a 80 gig up, 80 gig down pipe from LightTube, and it's not as fast as it used to be, that's because something else is probably using your system that you're not aware of. So ask yourself.
But the fact that Tullahoma is a gigabit city, does that make us more vulnerable, less vulnerable, or is that unrelated?
This would be a good question for our LightTube people. From what I've talked with them about, the security controls that are in place are very, very strong. When we move to 10 gigabit, to a 10 gigabit backbone here, it will, let's just say if your home is insecure, your home would be a better zombie than one because you have such a fast connection to the internet. It would. More than likely because of our region and our regional base of IPs, we're not going to be just targeted. But I can't promise that. I really can't promise that. These threat actors, nation state and just whoever, especially the nation state actors, if they haven't found out which cities are gigabit, I'd be surprised. So I'd say the answer to that is 50-50. We need to be careful. We need to be more responsible with the stuff we have.
Do you keep a spreadsheet of like your old passwords or whatever, like if you need to, I mean, something that's not online, but you've got a paper copy in a file somewhere that's locked up? I mean, do you have, where you go back and kind of track things? Do you do that, or do you recommend it, or how do you keep up when you do make a bunch of password changes?
Well, if you're gonna make a bunch of password changes that you can't remember off the top of your head, and you've got to write them down and put them in the safe. I mean, that's what I say. I mean, I put, but having them in a common place makes it just, it just makes. It's not that, and people say, I don't have anything. I don't have anything that's going to be hacked. I don't have multi-billion-dollar bank account information or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. This problem has nothing to do with that. So I would say, like, for instance, making passwords and putting them in a very secure location. And then just calculating risk. I didn't even talk about what, the cybersecurity triad, confidentiality, availability, and integrity. And make a list of those things that are most important to you. Your people, your devices, the data on your devices, and secure those things. Pay extra money to find a route that's easy to change. Doing continuous personal risk assessment, always looking at this risk that happened, this threat that happened October 21st. If you're not doing a new risk, well, we did, we've had examples of assessing risk, of looking at the threat. Okay, we know the threat is the threat, so we don't know that we can stop people from doing bad things. I mean, I don't know how, but I know that we can change our passwords on our routers. This one. Go where?
Yeah, okay. I don't know, I'll keep asking. You were talking about buying, like replacing your router. Why wouldn't just hit, where you can reset it? Why does that not work?
Okay. Hitting the reset, the factory reset button on your router will probably, more than likely, if all of you did that, a little red button on the back of it, you hit it and held it for about 30 seconds, it would probably cause you not to be able to connect to the internet. If, because it has configured itself back to factory default. So you're probably pretty secure at that point because nothing can get in or out really. I mean, it can, but so doing a factory reset is just going to mean you have to set it all back up again. So if you do a factory reset, set it all back up again, turn off universal plug and play and change the administrator password, that's different than the encryption password that you put in. When we want to connect to, to your, if I want to come and connect to your network at home, it's not that password. It's the administrator password to the router itself. And they just need to start making these things easier. Better software.
Does a $50 router provide me the same security as a $200 router?
I'd say spend at least 100. That's fine. If you wanted me to come configure a router for you right now, right this minute. Now, my boss is right there, so he's not going to pay me to do this. But I can tell you, go out and spend $100 and I can configure it in 5 minutes. Pretty much. Now, I can't patch all your computers, but I've done it a lot. Okay, that is true, but we got to figure out how to. See if I have any other questions. Yes.
What are some good brands that you recommend for routers? Just generally speaking.
Generally, Linksys, Cisco. How's that?
Any other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
In terms of, say, like, botnets and things like that, is there any way to know, is there any kind of good ways of figuring, is my computer affected? I know you mentioned infected. Are things running slower than they used to? Are there any other things like that might lead us to believe that something was going on?
Well, if you install, and I'm just going to name the product, I got to serve my audience. I mean, my people that serve me every day. Put McAfee on your computer. It'll tell you, and it will stop your children from doing things that they shouldn't do. And I'm not talking about. I'm just talking about compromised websites that are kid cartoon websites. Okay, but if you put that product more than likely on most Windows 7 computers, and you've got some kind of malware, you'll know it. That's what I'd suggest. And those subscriptions don't cost that much. Now software is on a subscription basis. So that's one thing I would suggest.
What about APG?
APG? Excellent. Malware bytes. Excellent. Malware bytes.
Yeah, we
Okay. Malware bytes. APG is free, or you can buy a free version and you can update for free. APG.
the city, you have to pay for it.
Well, you can pay for it, and you can, yes, you can manage it, centrally. But Malwarebytes is something that you use as a kind of a secondary tool. Find a lot of stuff that's on a computer that other stuff doesn't pick
That's
up.
all.
I've got the free AVG, and about this time of year coming up, next month or so, they offer the paid version at a real discount. So anybody's looking into that.
Steve, thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm certainly more well informed now, and I hope you are as well. It was an excellent presentation. Thank you, Alan Willie, for lunch today. Good job. Appreciate you paying for that. Thank our high school cafeteria for a job well done as well. Good meal. Any other announcements or anything with the group? Thanks, everybody, for being here. Have a good day. Thank you.
My name is Steve Gleason. I'm the cybersecurity director at Microcraft. We've been here at the mayor's emergency response meeting, and we've been talking about cybersecurity and how it affects our local community, our personal home networks, and the great city that we have, the gigabit city that we have here, and how we need to be a little more cyber hygienic, and got some great ideas, both from all aspects of the city officials.